What investments belong in my brokerage account? Stocks, ETFs, or munis? Says Bob from Massachusetts. Man, I love this question, and I can answer this every single day for sure because I mean this is probably my favorite part of financial planning. This and doing Roth conversions. All right, Bob. So I appreciate that, and he also says Happy Easter. Happy Easter back at you, sir. All right. So essentially, and I'll again, if this is redundant to some of you guys, sorry, but we have it's so important. We got three account types. All right, so we got tax, tax deferred, and tax free. All right, so we got tax, tax deferred, and tax free. What we want is we want bonds and tax deferred. We want stocks with dividends and REITs, real estate investment trusts, if you're going to have some. Stocks with dividends and tax free. That's a Roth IRA. And then we want stocks with no dividends or capital gains. This will be it's certainly an ETF in your taxable accounts. So we want stocks, ETFs in your taxable accounts in particular. So ETFs, that says ETFs by the way. So ETFs, stocks with no dividends, capital gains, or stock ETF stocks funds with no dividends and capital gains in your taxable account. Bonds in your tax deferred, and stocks with dividends and real estate investment trusts, things of that nature. Even preferred stocks in your Roth. All right, so I'd probably put preferred stocks in Roth. I could make an argument to put preferred stocks in your IRA account as well. All right, so let's go over this why. And the simple fact for this is because stocks are taxed much more favorably. Dividends and long-term capital gains, qualified dividends, are taxed much, much more favorably than ordinary income for bonds or CDs. And then municipal bonds, it's literally not worth having municipal bonds. I'm going to tell you why. All right, so what happens in your tax deferred account, everything that comes out is taxed as ordinary income. That's your IRA, your 401k. Everything that comes out is taxed as OI. All right, so what happens here is you're essentially saying I am taking if I have stocks in my IRA, stocks are taxed as long-term capital gains or qualified dividends, which are 0, 15, or 20, depending on your tax bracket. So stocks are taxed as long-term capital gains, qualified dividends, and by the way, stocks, you can take a loss on them because stocks go up and down, believe it or not, which you can use those losses to offset capital gains in the future, and you can take $3,000 if you have a loss against ordinary income. Bonds probably not going to do that. There's certainly no, in theory, a bond could lose money. I get it, but that's another reason why you want stocks in your taxable account, simply because it has loss potential and the tax are much, much more favorably. Long-term capital gains and qualified dividends are taxed much more favorably than OI, which is 10, 12, 22, 24, and so on. So you can just see the difference in taxes. So right here, if you're in a 10 to 12% tax bracket of ordinary income, that's 0% taxes on long-term capital gain and qualified dividend. If you're in a 22 and 24% tax bracket, that's 15% tax on long-term capital gain and qualified dividend. And you can see where that's going. So the higher your ordinary income, the more you're paying in income tax, but you're still one step behind in terms of the less of tax when it comes to qualified dividends and ordinary income. I can't make that clear. 10 to 12% ordinary income tax rate is 0 long-term capital gains and qualified dividends. 22, 24% tax bracket is 15% qualified dividends and long-term capital gains. So if I am sacrificing long-term capital gain by moving stocks into an IRA, I'm taking a 0% potential tax bracket and I'm making it tax at 10 to 12%, or I'm taking a 15% tax bracket and making it tax at 22 and 24%. It doesn't make sense to do that. Literally don't do that. So what people have is they'll have municipal bonds because they're tax-free in their brokerage accounts, because they're not paying tax, and then they'll have stocks in their IRA, which is just, don't do that. It literally makes no sense, because the municipal bonds, yes, are tax free, but you're not getting enough of a benefit from the interest that you're receiving, the yields that you get in municipal bonds, to make it worthwhile, not to sacrifice a lower tax scenario with stocks. And so what we want is, we want stocks in your taxable account, your brokerage account, and particularly stocks that don't pay dividends. So it's going to be ETFs that have very, that'd be your growth stock. So your brokerage account and your Roth account, which is where you hold your stocks, would be growth and value. Small caps and particularly large. So ideally, in your brokerage account, certainly no municipal bonds. I just don't do that. We want, in your brokerage account, growth, small cap stocks, because a lot of times there's significant upside with downside too, which means if they do go take a plump, you can sell them and take a loss and write that loss off against future gains in the future. But because small cap growth don't have any dividends, you're not going to get much in terms of dividends in that at all, which means there's no taxable income to you. If it's an ETF, the capital gains are not taxed, not transferred to you. So if you have an ETF, a small cap growth oriented stuff, and it could be large cap growth oriented stuff too, but generally speaking, if it's a blue chip stock, it's going to have a dividend. Not all of them, but most small caps and mid caps and large caps, in particularly on the small cap side, won't have dividends. But anyway, so the ETFs on this side won't be taxable. They won't give you capital gains, where a mutual fund could. So just be advised. There's really, and then on top of it, because it's small and because it's growth oriented, you're not going to get much in dividends either. So this is essentially a zero tax thing whatsoever. In your Roth is where you want your value stuff, your dividends, your utility stocks, your preferred stocks, your real estate, anything that has a growth potential, your blue chip stocks, where that has growth potential and has dividends. You want that to be in your Roth for sure. Because essentially what you're doing is, you do not want to have to pay taxes on that, but you want to get the advantage of dividends being reinvested. All right, so a couple things here too. It gets overlooked a lot. Now, if you don't live, you're in Massachusetts, common law, but if you lived in a community property state and you had a brokerage account that had, we'll say, $200,000 in it, and it's all small cap growth, all right, now that sucker grew to $500,000. That $300,000 of unrealized gains at your death is completely tax-free to your heirs. And if it's a community property state and it's entitled correctly, that heir could be your spouse. All right, but either way, it's to your kids, to your heirs. I can see that you're married, so your wife would much rather inherit $500,000 tax-free than inherit $500,000 taxable because it's in an IRA. And so that's how it can work in a taxable account. If it's in a Roth, it'd still be tax-free, which is awesome. But that's why you don't want anything other than stocks in a taxable account, because you can get the step up in basis, and there is no step up in basis on bonds. Bonds give you no growth. No growth means no step up in basis, because it gives no growth. Now, on the other hand, let's say you got that $200,000 and it goes to $500,000. We know that's tax free, but if it goes to zero, either way, it's beneficial. I know it sounds crazy, but if it grows at $500,000, it'll transfer tax free to your heirs upon death. If it goes to zero, well, you sell that puppy and you have $200,000 of capital loss, which you can use to offset against other capital gains in the future. So let's just say, you're big on Apple, and Apple's now trading at a premium significantly higher than you ever anticipated. You're like, man, I don't want to sell it because I don't want to get hit with a capital gain. Well, if you have a $200,000 capital loss carry forward, you definitely sell that puppy without question. That way you can offset, if you want to, I don't care, but you can sell that puppy and offset any of those gains with that $200,000 loss that you took in your brokerage account. You can't do that in IRA. IRA, there's no capital gain, no capital loss. It's all taxed as ordinary income, all of it. It will be taxed as ordinary income to you, be taxed as ordinary income to your spouse, it'll be taxed as ordinary income to your heirs, without question. No step up in basis, no capital loss, nothing. It's literally any growth you have is part of the IRS's lien on your property. Any loss that you have is the IRS doesn't give you any value for it. It's just you have less money in there. And then on top of that, to add fuel to salt to the wound, when you pull money out of it, you still got to pay ordinary income tax, regardless of you got a value growth of if you made money or not. It does not matter. I cannot stress this enough. So at the end of the day, going back to the three buckets, what we want. We got tax deferred, tax free being Roth. We want small growth-oriented stocks and tax your brokerage account, ETFs. It doesn't all have to be small. It can be mid-cap and large cap. We want corporate bonds in your tax-deferred account, your IRA. I don't care if it's mutual funds, individual corporate bonds. I just don't care. Even CDs for that matter. Tax-free would be value stocks. It doesn't have to be ETFs. It could be individual stocks. It could be mutual funds. It doesn't matter. That's what you want to set up. Small growth ETFs, bonds, and CDs in your tax-deferred. Tax-free should be value stocks. I hope this helps, my friend. And if you're living in Massachusetts, I'm going to do a video here later on today, I assume, on the estate tax in the state of Massachusetts, because it's dastardly. It is dastardly. A lot of people think only rich people pay it. It's the middle class that pays it because they're ignorant of it, because no one thinks, I'm middle class Joe. Remember old middle class Joe. Yeah, try to keep my politics at bay. Not a fan. But anyway, I'm a middle class dude. I'm not going to get hit with estate taxes. That only affects the rich guys from Monopoly. Nope. It affects the middle class because they're the ones who are ignorant of it. So stay tuned. All right, we'll see you. Thanks.